You're listening to the Sports Circus, and I'm Mike Golick.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Angus and Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, the king of all those gigantic cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes, as well as those massive half-pound Wagyu burgers. Best I've ever had, probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call, find out what's for dinner, 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for UppercutChops.com. Yes! All right, welcome in to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast. Everybody also on our independents. Thanks for joining us on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, WOW, Charter, and independent cable television affiliates, plus Hotel TV, where applicable, and Chicago food favorites on Facebook. And by the way, folks, right from the very top, our friends over at Vacation Buddies have a couple of nights in Las Vegas, Branson, Missouri, or Orlando, Florida for you if you can answer this simple trivia question. Which NBA superstar has won 6 NBA titles? Is it A, Magic Johnson, B, Shaquille O'Neal, C, Kobe Bryant, or D, Michael Jordan? Call 888-576-5777. 888-576-5777. 888-576-5777. If you know the answer to that simple trivia question, which NBA superstar has won 6 NBA titles? Is it A, Magic Johnson, B, Shaquille O'Neal, C, Kobe Bryant, or D, Michael Jordan? 888-576-5777. Contact Vacation Buddies right now. And remember, they are not a part of this radio station, but they want to give you a couple of nights in Vegas, Branson, Missouri, or Orlando, Florida. Go ahead and give them a call right now, 888-576-5777. All right, folks, let's get into it. Major League Baseball umpires seem to be an incredible thorn in the side of the fans, the players, even the broadcast booth from time to time. And I would argue that some of the owners are complaining about them as well. And this is historic, folks. When you think about what is riding on these alleged umpires, you ask yourself the question, well, what is it that they do wrong, or what is it that they're doing to make these ridiculous, and I mean stupid, calls? These are the questions we have. Listen to this. You'll like this one.
1-2. Strike 3 called in the vicinity of the outside corner.
In the vicinity, he says.
Check swing. He went around. Swing.
No, he did not go.
Well, I think that's kind of what you're talking about with Tucker, though, right? Is that he's got multiple. That's strike 3 call.
See, this was Jason Benetti of the Detroit Tigers calling those balls and strikes, of course, courtesy of Rob Friedman on X, the pitching ninja. He was recording that. But the reality is, when the umpires call something, and the broadcast booth, who has seen thousands upon thousands of pitches, when you just know what a ball and a strike is, even if you haven't played the game, you know what a ball and strike is because you've seen it thousands of times. Even the umpires, well, they're human. They make mistakes, whatever. But the umpires, they have a different agenda, and some of it is admirable, and most of it, in my opinion, as a former pitcher, is not necessarily admirable. And so the questions that are thrown out there, it's not just from guys like me. Oh, no. It's from a lot of people. And you ask yourself, what do they have to gain? Well, I think we know what they have to gain. But part of it deals with how they're paid. And sure, there are sites or people that are talking about umpire scoreboards, and there's one on X. It was called Umpire Scoreboard. It's a pretty cool graphic that they put up, and they're talking about balls and strikes and this, that, and the other. And there was a real big issue between a couple of teams recently. And this was one of those things you scratch your head and you say, well, if the Hall of Famers are saying what they're saying, you ask yourself, why is it founded or is it just opinion? But if you have Team A playing Team B and then Hall of Famer from Team C that has no stake in the game whatsoever, and they start spouting off, you ask yourself, is this valid? And one tends to believe it is. So how about this one? This is from Fox News. And National Baseball Hall of Famer Chipper Jones has had it with one Major League Baseball umpire in particular after a game between Team A and Team B. So it would be player or Hall of Famer Team C and A and B. So we won't even say the teams or the dates or any of this because it doesn't really matter. But Chipper, who is usually Chipper, has not been quite active on X regarding baseball in general. But in this particular case, I don't care if it was whether it was last month, last week, yesterday, last year, he didn't really say too much. But when you're drawn to a point, I don't care if it's the middle of football season, and you're talking about balls and strikes because the calls are so egregious, you scratch your head and say, wait a minute, what the hell's going on? And Chipper went on to really take the time to eviscerate a particular Major League Baseball umpire in Doug Eddings. And this guy, Doug Eddings, is known across the league and across the players, in my opinion, as being one of those guys that absolutely blows games up with terrible calls whatsoever. I got to tell you, folks, I have seen some things that make me scratch my head, just like with Pat Hoberg and even Angel Hernandez. And look, that's a whole nother discussion. Nonetheless, during this particular game, Chipper got so bent out of shape. Several calls were missed by the umpiring crew, of course, including Eddings, behind the plate. Pitches that should have been called balls were instead strike three calls by Eddings. And of course, Jones believed the umpire's performance was one of the worst he's ever seen. And look, I'm not going to argue against it. You already heard what Jason Benetti from the Detroit Tigers said, who does the play-by-play for the Tigers. For example, that call was in the vicinity of a strike, if you know what I mean, which of course is always deserves a terrible round of boos. Just awful. And so when the umpires are that bad and when the announcers are absolutely baffled by something that's not even in the area code, you know you get some inconsistencies in the booth because they're just as stunned as the batter, just as stunned as the manager for the offensive team at that point. In fact, Chipper even wrote, quote, not only one of the worst umpires in the league for going on 2 decades, but consistently one of the most confrontational, a toxic combination, close quote. And you know, good for Chipper for saying that. You find a lot of people say that when you're in the hall, well, you know, you're not going to really say too much, this, that, and the other. But he's been known to voice his opinion every now and then. So other than the strike three calls, Eddings also never asked for help when calling out a particular batter for a strike. So sometimes they could do that. They could appeal to first base or third base umpires. Well, guess what? That's not really happening. So now what do we have behind home plate? We don't have an umpire. We have an emperor. That was actually once said to me by a long time ago, an old second baseman for the New York Yankees. He played behind Phil Rizzuto. One of my very dear friends was Jerry Kaufman. And Jerry Kaufman actually was even a Supreme Court justice here in the state of Nevada. And Jerry was a former player just like myself. And we would talk about balls and strikes. We'd go to the Las Vegas 51s games and talk about that because, well, guess what? That's all we had in Las Vegas is we had AAA baseball. And in fact, at that time, that was for the AAA New York Mets organization. And, of course, of recent years, that switched over to AAA Oakland A's at the Las Vegas Aviators in a very different park. But you can watch these guys, these umpires, and scratch your head and say, well, what in the world's going on? So Chipper absolutely just throws his palms in the sky, watching a television like everybody else. He wasn't at the game. No, he's just watching it in just complete dismay. And, of course, Jones, knows about Eddings, given his time with the Atlanta Braves for 19 years from 93 to 2012. And Eddings began working Major League Baseball in the late 1990s. He worked 14 postseason series, including 2 World Series. How that happens, I don't know. But Chipper didn't really specify his own experiences with Eddings, but they didn't sound too positive, if you know what I mean. And, of course, that X account that I mentioned, the umpire scoreboard, posted Eddings' results from that particular game where, yes, his overall accuracy was 92%, and he had an 80% called strike accuracy with 8 of his 40 called strikes ruled as true balls. And see, this is where the point of contention starts, because it's not necessarily his overall accuracy. No. It's the impactful missed calls. In fact, when we come back from break, we're going to talk a little bit about that, because this is a real problem, folks. And if you don't know, you're going to know real soon. Don't go anywhere. Back here in a few minutes on The Circus. Lots more to come. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. B-E-E-P-I-N autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Percentage rate and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and accepted by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be applied.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Or make your selection directly at UpperCutChops.com.
Excellent. back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thank you, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by your friends over at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's the College of Southern Nevada Athletics, csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. Folks, make sure you check them out. Oh, you know, they've been with us since the very beginning. We always want to give them the super applause. And a big welcome back to everybody listening in on all of our affiliates, including our friends over in Atlanta, WDJY 99.1 FM. Thanks for waking up with us. Over in Auburn, Alabama, thanks for joining us on your drive home on 1230 on the AM dial, WAUD, home of the Atlanta Braves. Plus our friends throughout the heartland, all the way out to the West Coast. Everybody driving between Las Vegas and Los Angeles, the LA Basin. Thanks for joining us on Highway Country Radio, 101.5 FM and 107.3 FM up and down the West Coast from Los Angeles up to Seattle, even to Anchorage, Alaska, over to Honolulu. CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. That's home of the Yankees, 49ers, and Alabama Crimson Tide. And a big welcome back to everybody at Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, WOW, Charter, and independent cable television affiliates, as well as everybody on Hotel TV where applicable. Now, folks, by the way, in case you're just tuning in, we want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to get their shot at a couple of free nights over in Las Vegas, Branson, Missouri, or Orlando, Florida. The trivia question that you have to answer is, which NBA star has 6 NBA titles, 6 championships? Is it A, Magic Johnson, B, Shaquille O'Neal, C, Kobe Bryant, or D, Michael Jordan? If you know the answer, call right now, 888-576-5777. That's 888-576-5777. Vacation Buddies wants to give you 2 free nights in Las Vegas, Branson, Missouri, or Orlando, Florida. That's 888-576-5777. Call them right now. Vacation Buddies is not affiliated with this station, but they sure want to give you a couple of free nights in Las Vegas, Branson, Missouri, or Orlando, Florida. 888-576-5777. Call them right now, folks. All right, now that we got all that stuff done, we're going to pick up with where we left off in the last segment about umpires. And I was talking about this scorecard. This is pretty interesting stuff. So Chipper Jones was losing his mind, and I don't blame him, about let's face it, complaining about Doug Eddings, the umpire. And again, I don't care if it was yesterday, last week, last month, last year, whatever, 10 years ago, 23 years ago, whatever. The point is, Chipper had every right to complain because he was saying, look, this guy being Doug Eddings, not just a questionable umpire, but technically a bad umpire. As I see it, that's how I hear it, that's how I read it, it's my opinion, it is what it is. But when you look at this umpire scorecard, so there's this really cool scorecard that's put out there by Umpire Scorecards, and they are an ex-member, but you can call it Twitter, you can call it X, call it whatever the hell you want. Well, anyway, what they do is they break down the score, the date, the overall accuracy, and it says how many called strikes were actually called correctly, I should say. Better yet, it was the total amount of pitches that were called correctly. And the relative accuracy, there's a plus-minus factor. Also, the overall favor of which team it actually favors, and we're going to get to that coming up here soon, and overall consistency. So, if you look at all of those favors and factors and all this other consistency, you say, all right, well, according to Umpire Scorecard, the impactful missed calls are really what changed the complexion of the game. And this is where a lot of gamblers, a lot of sports bettors have this problem. Me, I'm one of those guys too. I have a real problem with it. I think games largely are fixed. And of course, that's my opinion. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Nonetheless, the impactful missed calls happened, for example, in the bottom of the 8th in this particular game with 1 out and a runner on first and third, a 2-1 count. And a ball, which would have made it 3 balls, 1 strike, was called a strike, which changed everything. Now, of course, that was in favor of, the other team. Now, in the top of the third in this particular game, with 1 out, bases empty, a 1-2 count, a ball is called on a clear strike, which extends the inning, which is not right. Now, also in the fourth inning, and there was basically nobody out, runner on first, and it was the first pitch of the at-bat, and the ball is actually called a strike, which puts the hitter in a defensive position where you get a strike called against you right out the gate. So the pitcher gets ahead, and the pitcher controls the count. So this is all about the pitcher controlling the count, but not because the pitcher earned the count. No, it is all because of the umpire's convenient calls to control the tempo of the game, but also to control the psyche of the hitter and the pitcher at the same time. And folks, this is legit. If you don't think it's legit, trust me, it is legit. Take it from a former pitcher. And that's exactly why Chipper Jones was losing his mind with it as well, because there's a lot of stuff that happens here in these games that people don't talk about. I mean, look, umpiring in Major League Baseball has been one of those big debated topics, and especially considering the technological advances that have been made in sports elsewhere as well. And of course, good old Rob Manfred, and every time we bring him up, there's a nice chorus of boo for Rob Manfred. He says the league will propose an automated ball strike challenge system in an upcoming season, and it was tested during spring training in the 2025 season, and it seems like the feedback overall was positive. So the bigger question is, what are they going to do? I mean, pitchers and hitters were able to tap on their heads to challenge the ball strike during that spring training time when it was utilized in 2025. But what's going to happen beyond that? I mean, who knows? It's a massive change to the modern game. I mean, hell, they've made the bases bigger. They've changed the extra innings. They've made the pitchers have a clock. They can only have a certain amount of moves to first base. I mean, the whole thing, not just to first base, to any base. The whole thing stinks for what Rob Manfred is doing to Major League Baseball. He's turning it into something it wasn't intended to be in the first place. And frankly, it's an absolute abomination. But when you ask about these balls and strikes, you say, well, all right, maybe there was some kind of an issue with the balls and strikes when they were called from the umpire's position. Because you see, folks, in many cases, the umpires will either set up over the inside corner or over the outside corner. And a lot of times the umpires will set up over the inside corner where the hitter is, so they get a better viewpoint as to what's going on the inside. The outside, they can make some kind of an estimate or guesstimate. But when you're over the inside corner, you tend to get more outside calls than inside calls as a pitcher, because the inside calls are looked over directly by the umpire, and the umpire is sitting right over it, so the umpire can see it. However, on the inside part of the plate, the umpire is going to be very, very, very tight on their calls because they're right over it. And that's the common thinking nonetheless. But you have to realize that the umpires, yes, they do make mistakes. But when the mistakes become egregious and you ask yourself, okay, did that really happen? And let's go back to the 2024 series between the New York Yankees and, of course, the Kansas City Royals. That's the American League Division Series. And so Kings of Kaufman says, stats prove Kansas City Royals can blame the ALDS loss on the Yankees' umpiring advantage. And I don't know if that's an advantage, but you never know. So we'll throw a little laughter in there. But according to Kings of Kaufman, they say the Kansas City Royals 2024 season may be over, but there are still some asterisks and footnotes to address. Award season, of course, featured a few Royals and whatnot and so forth. However, one footnote confirms Kansas City fans' worst fear: questionable umpiring decisions could be responsible for the team's early exit in the 2024 playoffs. Yeah, and apparently there's some data out there to prove some of this stuff. So, of course, the umpires muddy the postseason waters for the Royals in favor of the Yankees, but complaining about umpiring in baseball is all too easy. Despite the introduction of replay and challenges and missed calls, things still happen. So, according to Kings of Kaufman, they say a prime example is the stolen base by Yankees third baseman Jazz Chisholm Jr. in Game 1 of the ALDS, which highlights the system's shortcoming. Even after the Royals challenged the play and it was sent off-site for review, the original call stood, that's right, despite a visible beam of light, some daylight between Chisholm's foot and the bag when he was tagged by the Royals' second baseman. That's right. So these calls do happen, and how convenient it was in favor of the New York Yankees. Now, facing the Yankees in the ALDS, the Royals were eliminated in 4 games, but all 3 losses came by slim margins. In fact, the final game was a 3-1 loss, marked by the widest margin in the highly competitive series. The other 2 losses were 1-run losses that felt more like moral victories, with the Royals only truly claiming victory in Game 2. Again, Kings of Kaufman say ultimately the New York Yankees outscored the Royals by just 2 runs in the series. We're going to come back with that on the break. Lots more to come here, folks. You're going to like this one because there is something to it, and then we're going to jump into a little bit more of the questionable umpires and what they do. And believe me, folks, this is one you don't want to miss. Back here in a few. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime, nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
It's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time. That's 800-950-2049.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
Excellent.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Folks, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guest, our prior guest, or recorded shows, which can be found on Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, iHeart, Stitcher, Deezer, plus a whole bunch of others. Also, make sure you check out the partners page. Lots of great partners over there. And one of those is the music of Jason Owens, country music star, up-and-coming star, Jason Owens. Check him out at jasonowensmusic.com and pick up his tour dates. And he plays out here in Las Vegas, and he plays, well, frankly, all over the country. And this is an up-and-coming superstar. Check him out. Follow him on social media. He's a good guy, a very, very good guy. And guess what? People like his music, and they just like him. Check him out. jasonowensmusic.com. Atta boy. He's one of the good ones, folks. All right. Welcome back to everybody. You know who you are on TV and radio and whatnot. And we're going to pick up with this discussion on the Yankees and the Kansas City Royals from 2024. Why? Because it deals with pitches and advantages by Team A or Team B. And it deals with what the umpires and what the umpire scoreboard actually does. And so from an evaluation standpoint, look, this whole umpire issue, the umpires act like emperors, but they're not emperors. No, they're umpires. They got to realize that they are only a part of the game and they can't control the game. They're not supposed to control the game anyway, but you'll find out real soon that they actually do control, and sometimes they do benefit from it. But nonetheless, according to Kings of Kaufman, they had said that the Yankees outscored the Kansas City Royals by just 2 runs in the series of the ALDS in 2024. And of course, Royals review Matthew Lamar pointed out that this is closely mirrored to the umpires' calls favoring, of course, the New York batters. Now, 4 out of 4 games where the umps' calls benefited the actual Yankee team and not the Royals. Total impact over those 4 games was a +2 run differential in favor of who? The New York Yankees. And of course, some may argue that complaining about the umpires' calls is a loser's mindset. But inconsistency against Kansas City is hard to ignore in that series. While the Royals certainly had some calls go their way, they didn't receive nearly the same number as the Yankees, and this isn't necessarily new. So according to Umpire Scoreboard, Kansas City ranks 27th out of 30 teams in the rate of games where umpires' calls favor them. And their 43.2% rate pales in comparison to the Yankees at 67.5%, which leads Major League Baseball by a very wide margin. I mean, it's not like the Yankees need another advantage, do they? I mean, they already have about the biggest payroll or one of the biggest payrolls, whatever. And they're already the number 1 TV market. They get everything seemingly. I mean, what else do they need? Oh, that's right. Maybe a little bit of help from the umpires. Oh, that seems to help a little bit. But look, even that trend is nothing new. I mean, looking at the games between March 29th of 2018 and September 29th of 2024, so you're talking a 6-year stretch, the Yankees had the umpiring advantage in 57% of their games, which still leads, it's actually 56.9, I rounded up, whatever. 56.9% of their games, which still leads all teams in that date range. Meanwhile, the Royals are tied with the Oakland Athletics, or you can call them the Sacramento Athletics at this point, or the Las Vegas Athletics, for last place at just 44%. You're talking a 13% differential, folks. That's big. Now, to be clear, the Royals didn't help their cause in the ALDS with pitching woes and some cold bats or whatever. However, the cries of umpires favoring New York, the biggest and most popular team left in the American League postseason at that time, grew louder before the series ended. And of course, if this trend continues throughout the postseason, year in, year out, Major League Baseball will have some real explaining to do regarding their umpires' shortcomings. And so that leads me to, you'll like this one, folks. This one leads me to Major League Baseball Trade Rumors.com. And this came out a little while back. And they're talking about Major League Baseball firing an umpire. And that is Pat Hoiberg for violation of gambling policy.
Show me the money!
That's right. This guy, boy, and there's a lot to talk about with this one. Now, this one came out a while back, but listen, this is a current issue today. Major League Baseball issued a statement regarding Pat Hoiberg, and the umpire was fired for violating the league's gambling policy. Per Major League Baseball statement, there's no evidence that Hoiberg himself bet on games or that the outcomes of any games were compromised. Now, just with that alone, why does Major League Baseball say, oh, we're going to fire this guy? However, the statement that says Hoiberg shared a gambling account with a professional poker player, with this friend using that account to bet on baseball. And the statement also says Hoiberg deleted messages related to the investigation. The plot thickens. News of Hoiberg's situation first came out back a year ago, as of course covered by Major League Baseball Trade Rumors back at the time. And of course, Major League Baseball released a statement at the time saying that the league had started investigating Hoiberg during spring training and that discipline was warranted. Now, wait a minute, we're talking a year previous. So they let him go with this whole betting thing for a whole year before deciding to fire this guy? Oh, that's right. So they said, we're going to give this guy some discipline during spring training. Of course, Hoiberg decided to appeal. And, appeals always are heard. So the statement, according to Rob Manfred, was upheld, and the decision, quote, following an appeal process in accordance with its collective bargaining agreement with Major League Baseball Umpires Association, close quote. So apparently it was upheld. Now the statement reads, quote, Major League Baseball immediately opened an investigation back in February of 2024 upon reviewing and receiving information from a licensed sports betting operator that Hoiberg had opened a sports betting account in his own name, and that personal electronic device associated with this account was also associated with the legal sports betting account of an individual not covered by Major League Baseball's policies, individual A we'll call him, who had bet on baseball. And Hoiberg was subsequently removed from spring training and had been made inactive for the 2024 championship season, pending completion of the investigatory process. Per the statement, by the way, Hoiberg has admittedly denied betting on baseball directly or indirectly, for example, through his friends, and the data provided by the sportsbook does not show any baseball bets from his own electronic devices, close quote. So it goes on to state that the league, quote, found no evidence that Hoiberg or anyone else took any action to manipulate the outcomes of any games, and an analysis of the betting data did not show any discernible pattern indicative of integrity risk, close quote. But why did Major League Baseball fire him if that's the case, if there was no evidence? So per MajorLeagueBaseball.com, none of the best plays from Hoiberg's devices were on baseball. However, the Friends device bet on baseball 141 times, including 8 games that Hoiberg actually worked in the first place. Oh, mercy. Quote, The investigation found no pattern to indicate Hoberg's calls were influenced by the bets, none of which were profitable. Close quote. That's by, of course, MajorLeagueBaseball.com. Now, the four-letter network has their writer, and they said that provides some more detail on arrangements between Hoberg and his friends who met at a poker tournament in 2014 and became friends. In 2019, online sports betting became legal in Iowa, where Hoberg lives. And the friend opened legal accounts with two sportsbooks, and Hoberg, quote, asked his friend to place non-baseball sports bets for him using the account to do so. The friend gave Hoberg the username and password to the accounts so Hoberg could place the bets directly, logging into the account using Hoberg's own device on occasion when his friend was not in Iowa, therefore not able to place bets for Hoberg, close quote. And of course, the two friends communicated via the app of Telegram and kept logs of their gambling in their later settling debts in cash when they saw each other in person. After being contacted by MLB, the friend deleted Telegram threads with Hoberg, and Hoberg deleted his own Telegram account. Major League Baseball was not able to retrieve the messages. Now, Telegram, if you don't know, was one of those, I guess, high encryption. You couldn't break into the text app, whatever. And I think WhatsApp is supposed to be like that too, whatever the case. It doesn't matter. Folks, the only way to make all that completely bug-proof and foolproof is by using something called Developers Tools and going in and turning the sensors off. That's how you do it, folks. Anyway, back here in a few minutes on The Circus. Don't go anywhere.
Do you know someone with a drug or alcohol problem? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything. Stop the drug and alcohol nightmare. Are drug and alcohol problems hitting you too close to home? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything.
800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. That's 800-831-1560.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. B-E-E-P-I-N autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196.
You'll get your
Do a
chance,
search
smart
on how to
guy.
get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
What's up, Doc?
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP television. Folks, again, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for upcoming guests, prior guests, and all of our recorded shows, which can be found on streaming platforms. And also check out the store tab. Right across the top, there is a tab that says store, and check out the hats and t-shirts and sweatpants and ball caps and beanies and travel mugs and coffee mugs and mouse pads and pillows and whatnot. Listen, folks, American-made products, silk-screened and embroidered with the Sports Circus clever logo on it. If you want to learn a little bit more about that, info at thesportscircus.com. That's info at thesportscircus.com. Tell you what, folks, mention Ringmaster Sal for an extra 10% off, and of course, a shameless plug for the Sports Circus. Of course, the Sports Circus always gets the super applause. Yes! And by the way, that's my patented yes! So don't use it without crediting me. All right. Moving on. Talking about this umpire firing from Major League Baseball. And MLB.com talked about it, and they said in a statement, they said none of the bets that this particular Pat Hoiberg, who is an umpire that was fired, none of the bets placed from the devices were on baseball. However, the Friends device had 141 baseball bets on it, including 8 games that Hoiberg actually worked. And of course, the Four-Letter Network had reported that there was some kind of arrangement between the Hoiberg, who was the umpire, and one of his friends who lives in Iowa. That's where the betting was legal back in 2019 when the account was open. But Hoiberg actually had the username and password so he could actually log in and, well, let's face it, make bets if he really wanted to. I guess if that's the case, I don't know. That's what it reads. But nonetheless, the communication between Hoiberg and his friend were done through Telegram, and they thought they would be able to get away with this by deleting the threads and this, that, and the other. Well, that didn't really work either. Now, Major League Baseball's statement goes on to state that Michael Hill, Senior Vice President of On-Field Operations, determined that Hoiberg demonstrated poor judgment and could not be trusted to, quote, maintain the integrity of the international game of baseball, close quote. Hoiberg was notified on May 31st, 2024, that he would be fired. He appealed the decision to Manfred through the collective bargaining, which the umpires called for the involvement of a mutually agreed upon a neutral fact finder who would look into the events in question. Now, per the statement, Manfred is to give due regard to the findings of the fact finder, but, quote, is not bound by them and can make an independent judgment that is final, binding, and not just subject to the grievance procedure or challenge in any other forum, close quote. In the same way, of course, that he says, well, you know what, let's go ahead and take Pete Rose off the ineligible list for the Hall of Fame and all this other crap. That's complete lunacy. Anyway, the statement also from Manfred was included in the release from the league. Quote, the strict enforcement of Major League Baseball's rules governing sports betting and the conduct is a critical component of upholding our most important priority, protecting the integrity of our games for the fans. An extensive investigation revealed no evidence that Mr. Hoiberg placed bets on baseball directly or that he or anyone else manipulated the games in any way. However, his extremely poor judgment in sharing betting accounts with a professional poker player, he had reason to believe bet on baseball and who did, in fact, bet on baseball from the shared account combined with his deleted messages creates at minimum the appearance of imposing the most severe discipline. Therefore, there is just cause to uphold Mr. Holbrook's termination for failing to conform to the high standards of professional conduct and to maintain the integrity of the game of baseball, close quote. Now, Holbrook also released a statement, and of course his was through The Athletic, among those to relay it to the public. Quote, I take full responsibility for the errors in judgment that I've outlined in today's statements. Those errors will always be a source of shame and embarrassment for me. Major League Baseball umpires are held to the high standard of personal conduct, and my own conduct fell short of that standard. That said, to be clear, I would never bet on baseball in any way, shape, or form. I have never provided and would never provide information to anyone for the purpose of betting on baseball. Upholding the integrity of the game has always been the utmost importance to me, and I apologize to Major League Baseball and the entire baseball community for my mistake. I vow to learn from them and to be a better version of myself moving forward, close quote. And of course, Holbrook can apply for reinstatement, but not until the end of spring training 2026. Now, that sounds like a really good person to bring onto the show. Now, remember, if you're following, first we want to give him a round of applause for at least stepping up and stating that, hey, look, he made some mistakes. So let's go ahead and give him an astounding round of applause. All right, and that's going to do it for that. And so, look, we had Tim Donaghy on, who fixed basketball games for the NBA, or not for the NBA, but NBA games. And that in itself was a complete and utter disaster. And Tim Donaghy went to prison for 13 months because of it. And so he also made reference to other people that maybe were involved or that could have been involved or whatever. We don't know. But I'll tell you what we do know. We do know that certain umpires seem to have certain calls go a certain way for certain teams. And here's a crazy thing. Now, we did some research on this back in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. 34,000 calls by umpires were missed. That's right, about 34,000. Of course, there was a big improvement. Oh, yeah. Somehow there was an improvement. In 2024, in the Major League Baseball season, umpires missed an astounding 27,336 calls. And somehow they're called professionals. That's right. And of course, of those, 1,637 missed calls resulted in strikeouts. And of course, good old Angel Hernandez, and every time we say his name, yes, that happens. And we'll just keep booing him because we can. Anyway, Angel was one of those guys, a now retired umpire, was responsible for the worst missed calls of the season. According to Outkick, that's right, according to Outkick, in case you don't know. But somehow, there was an astonishing 27,336 missed calls by umpires. This is a problem. And of course, take a wild guess who was responsible for the worst. That's right, Angel Hernandez worst. But you ask yourself, well, how many calls do umpires miss? Well, we know. And what is the average salary of a Major League Baseball umpire? That's the next question. Well, it's around $300,000. While it's a general average, salaries can range from $150,000 to $450,000, depending on experience and everything else. Well, what does that tell you? First of all, it tells you that they are the cheapest employed people on the field in the first place. That's right. They get paid the least. So they have the most to gain by blown calls, as I see it. And of course, what umpire missed 22 calls recently? How about this? How about home player umpire Mike Muchlinski? He told the Cardinals players if they touch their helmet to sacrifice, or better yet, to sarcastically suggest they're challenging a pitch. They did not. Well, and this was during spring training, actually. And they did not. They did. And guess what? The automatic ball and strike thing actually proved that this guy was a complete disaster. And so, yes, it was Mike Muchlinski. Well, that's a mouthful. Anyway, the reality is this guy, even during spring training, he was missing calls left, right, and center. In fact, I remember watching some video on him. I mean, look, what is the accuracy rating of the umpires generally speaking? By the numbers league-wide, it's about 94%, which is actually pretty good. That's, well, according to last year, and that's by ump scorecard. But that's down a bit from 2023 when it was actually from about 90% or so in 2015. And I can actually relate that real simply to sports betting. Because as I see it, sports betting changes a lot of things. And of course, with sports betting, you're going to see certain things, but you're also going to see replays and whatnot. And then now the umpires can be questioned and they could be fined because of bad calls, generally speaking. So look, there's a lot more to it. I mean, do umpires get paid for extra innings? No. So think about the potential impact. And the fact that umpires aren't paid extra for extra innings has been suggested as a factor in how they officiate, potentially leading to calls that tend to end games sooner. And those balls being what? Called as strikes, right? Because they're not getting bonus bucks. No. They say, nah, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to call this thing. We're going to call it a day. And honestly, I think that's absolutely terrible. That's right. Now, do umpires get fined? Yes, they actually do get fined. And that's why I said that about the sports betting and all this other stuff. And there's grading and evaluation, but they have union protection as well. And look, there are penalties, but while common, umpires can be fined or suspended for bad calls or bad behavior. What about Angel Hernandez? Well, he didn't really have that. Now, did he? But public perception, honestly, is there's a big perception that they're not held, being the umpires, to some level of accountability for their bad calls. And that's a bunch of nonsense because really it just seems like there's an issue. Is it a man-woman thing? Are there major league umpires that are female? Yeah. In fact, there are female umpires. In fact, Jen Powell is one such umpire that has been working in Major League Baseball, spring training games, that is, including the Grapefruit League opener between the Astros and Nationals in 2024, and of course making her the first woman umpire in Major League Baseball spring training, not to be confused, of course, with the regular season. And so when you say, well, those guys don't get paid much, what about the broadcasters that complain about it? Well, listen, folks, you think the umpires don't get paid much? How about this? Think about this. Major League Baseball broadcasters generally earn between $19.76 per hour and $20.19 per hour, with some earnings as high as $30.77 per hour. Average yearly salaries for Major League Baseball broadcasters in the U.S. is around $51,206. That's crazy, folks. And if you think about it, the national average is $19.76. The California average is $19.51 per hour, that is. Salary range $16.31 to $20.19 per hour. And, of course, factors affecting pay, well, skill level, location, and years of experience. So if you think broadcasters get paid a lot of money, folks, they don't get paid diddly you-know-what. So guess what? They don't have a dog in the fight. They're just calling the games, and they want the games to last a little longer because they get paid a little bit more. Anyway, folks, that's going to do it for today's show. I'm your Ringmaster Sal. We'll see you in 23 hours on here, your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
If I was your mother and you had a drug problem, I'd grab you by the ear and make you call and get help. You can be in treatment tomorrow and start to get clean in 7 days. Follow Mom's advice and call the Detox and Treatment Helpline now. Write this number down.
800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. That's 800-814-8628.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.